Okay, yes, I still count on my fingers. Math is hard for me. Not so much for these three genius, gentle women. Alliterations are also hard. This is Study Abroad. First up is Hedy Lamarr. Born in Vienna on November 9th, 1914, she was remarkably beautiful, a contributing factor to her acting career, but also one that was exploited when she was 18 and pressured to do nude scenes. She grew weary, but not even that could stop her love of acting. Soon enough, she amassed a bunch of male fans, including Friedrich Mendel, a wealthy arms merchant. The two got married and it wasn't a fairy tale. Turns out he was the type of dude who partied with Mussolini and Hitler, and he treated Lamarr like an object and told her to stop acting, which she didn't want to do. Eventually, she had had enough and just fled the country to return to her career, and her fame reached new highs as a Hollywood actress, where she was considered one of the most beautiful women alive. The problem was, that was all. All of her roles only focused on her appearance, so she got bored and just picked up a new hobby on the side: inventing. And then World War II rolled around, and she realized that torpedoes controlled by radios could be jammed, which is a bad thing. And using the knowledge she amassed as the wife of a weapons merchant, personal research, and with the help of her friend George Antheil, a pianist, the two invented a frequency hopping system which is now a fundamental element to communication technology like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. What sucks is that the recognition for her work only came around decades later, near the end of her life, or even after, since she died on January 19th, 2000, but was only inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame in 2014. A similar story of underappreciated brilliance can be found with Katherine Johnson. Born on August 26, 1918, she excelled at math at a young age, but education didn't come easy for a young African-American girl in a segregated America. Nonetheless, she pursued mathematics into college and was just so enthusiastic that courses were made specifically for her. And she eventually made a career as a research mathematician and got a job at NASA working with other women to perform calculations. They were called computers, or sometimes colored computers, because racism is a thing. As a person of color, she was forced to work, eat, and use a separate washroom from her white colleagues. And as a woman, she was discouraged from putting her name on reports that she had worked on. But she refused to be fazed by this discrimination because she knew her worth, and eventually she earned the respect of all of her colleagues. Johnson was involved in many key NASA assignments. She calculated the trajectory for the first American in space, worked on the Apollo 13 mission, and when NASA eventually started using actual computers to run calculations for John Glenn's 1962 orbit around the Earth, Glenn specifically demanded Johnson to verify the calculations before he would fly out. That was how trusted she was. And sure, Johnson may be less of a hidden figure nowadays, but she was a trailblazer for women of color in STEM. Our final genius is Marilyn Vos Savant. Yes, she was born with savant literally in her name, and she lived up to it by making history at 10 years old by answering every question correctly on an IQ test. Now, to qualify as a genius, you only need to score above 140. Savant got 228. Now even she recognizes that IQ scores aren't necessarily indicative of intelligence, but she is clever and noted for her quick objective thought process. Nonetheless, her youth passed by sort of unremarkably. She dropped out of college to work for her family business for a while, but in the 1980s, over 2 decades since her legendary IQ score, she decided to move to New York to pursue writing. And just like anyone in New York, she struggled to make it. But she did have this unique claim to fame: her IQ score, which she sent to the Guinness Book of World Records and easily earned the title of the highest IQ in history, which she held for 5 years before the title was retired. But the press of the title was enough. She landed a job as a columnist in Parade magazine, answering all sorts of questions in her section called Ask Marilyn. Most famously, she answered the Monty Hall problem, which has an interesting answer all on its own, but needless to say, when she answered it, nobody believed her. About 10,000 people wrote in, including those with PhDs, trying to prove her wrong. Now, to be fair, it probably wasn't as much a gender thing as the fact that the answer is sort of paradoxical. Nonetheless, she was right. And it was this sort of brilliance that made and make a lot of people wonder why she didn't dedicate herself to something more remarkable. Why didn't she become an inventor like Lamarr or forge into space like Johnson? And the answer was simple: she didn't want to. And it's an interesting note on intelligence and genius. Just like any other individual characteristic, it can be a part of you, but it doesn't have to define you. So those were 3 brilliant broads. I hope you liked this video. If you did, consider liking it and subscribing to Snarled for other awesome content. And if you want to see more of this face for whatever reason, you can find me on YouTube at Nerdy and Quirky.